Alright, so in this question, we're going to be talking about the skull of the newborn, okay? And this is going to be question number 22 from section A, okay? Now, specifically, we're going to be discussing the actual differences of the skull of the newborn from the skull of the adult, okay? And there are going to be 6 differences, okay? Now, I divided these differences into 3 categories, okay? Because I think that's the easiest way to remember it, okay? Now, you guys are going to remember that there are going to be 2 differences in the cranial part, there are going to be 2 differences in the auricular or temporal part, and then there are going to be 3 differences in the mandibular part, okay? And if you can remember that there's 3 groups of differences, or major differences, in the skull of the newborn from the skull of the adult, okay, you're going to be more likely to remember this or recall this in the oral exam, okay? So, you have, in your cranial part, you have 2 differences. The first one being the fact that you have large gaps in between cranial bones, okay? Whereas in the adult, it's going to be known as sutures, okay? Now, if you look on, by the way, guys, we're on page 14, but if you look on the bottom diagram of page 14 of the Netter's Atlas, you're going to see these gaps becoming especially large in the anterior fontanelle and the posterior fontanelle, okay? And this anterior fontanelle is going to be known as the bregma, whilst the posterior fontanelle is going to be known as the lambda, okay? Now, the second cranial difference is the fact that you guys have a metopic suture still present, okay? Whereas in the skull of the adult, it's it's going to be more of a lining that'll be visible, but the gap will be eradicated, okay? Now, let's talk about the mandibular part, okay? Now, in the mandibular part, there are going to be 2 differences once again. Now, I can't show you because there's not a newborn mandible present, but if you guys know that the mandible has a body, a ramus, and an angle of the mandible that divides the two, if you guys know that the angle of the mandible in adults has a very sharp or protruding angle, okay, whereas in the newborn, it's a more round angle, not as sharp, okay? The second difference is, if you can imagine the anterior part of the mandible and the middle part, okay, basically the mental region, it is connected by a mental symphysis. So a better way to explain that would basically be that the fact that the left and right mandible are joined via mental symphysis in the mental region, okay? So those are your 2 mandibular differences, and your last difference is going to be in your temporal and auricular part, okay? So there's going to be 2 things. One is there's going to be a lack of a external acoustic meatus bony plate, okay? Therefore, this is going to leave the eardrum exposed, okay? Also, you're going to have an underdeveloped masseter process, and because of this, the facial nerve is also going to be exposed and more prone to injury, okay? And there you have it, guys. Those are your 6 differences of the newborn skull, okay?